Middle School at 2325 Northeast 203 Street. More schools and shelters that are open and still have plenty of room. Norwood Elementary School at 19810 Northwest 14th Court, Lakes Way. You have got to watch out for debris in your yard or wherever you are, or on the highways, out on the roadways. These are all possible projectiles once these hurricane force winds hit, and we're expecting winds to begin kicking up. Well, they have already mildly for the moment, but around midnight tonight, after midnight tonight, very strong winds are going to be on the way, and parts of the turnpike and I-95, there are some trees, construction equipment, even ladders and horse fence posts and stuff like that, and we've got a lot of debris in the roads, and these are making all for projectiles and could make for very dangerous situations as well.
There are a lot of dangerous things that are going to be happening, and many of them will be around your own house. And the best thing to tell you is to use common sense if you've never been through a hurricane. I've been through every hurricane in South Florida since 1936, and some things that people don't think of is that many of the homes have tile floors. And when they close themselves up into a safe area, such as a hallway with the doors closed on both ends, they'll take in, obviously, something to drink, something to eat, and something to rest upon. Make sure that those things that you're going to drink out of or eat out of are not glass, because without power, in the darkness, if you drop a glass and it shatters on the floor, you've got a problem. You could hurt yourself tremendously. But make sure that you just think of those things. Just use common sense.
Right. That's the whole key to being involved with a hurricane. Now, you've been involved with hurricanes, Henry. On Miami Beach, for example, some of those older hotels, they've been through several hurricanes as well, and some of them can take it, and a lot of the newer ones are the ones you really have to watch out for.
Those have not been tested. You're absolutely correct. They have not been tested. I wouldn't be in any of them on Miami Beach, to tell you the truth. I would be off Miami Beach if that's where I live, but I don't. I live inland, and that's why I want to live after having seen so many hurricanes. But I talked about something earlier today, how wet and how flooded conditions can be. In the city of South Miami, in downtown South Miami, many people know where the Bakery Center complex is. That sits atop a house where I grew up. And in the 1947 hurricane, which was a wet hurricane, we were flooded that far. I rode around my yard in a wash tub type thing. There was 2 or 3 feet of water in my yard there. That's a very high piece of land, yet that was still underwater. There are a lot of areas that were not developed land the last time we had a hurricane. I think expressly of land to the east side of Old Cutler Road in South Dade. That land to the east was some of it mangrove, some of it water's edge, and it's been filled in. That's an extreme danger area. That area has been evacuated, or should have been evacuated. I think of far west Dade County, out Kendall Drive. A lot of the developments out there used to be in the Everglades and have been filled in. And out Sunset Drive, far west in Dade County. Those areas were underwater in previous hurricanes. You may have some danger there, even though you're far from the coast. If we get a lot of rain in this hurricane, and they're expecting 4 to 5 inches as it comes through. That's not a lot, but there's no telling how much and how long that will go on. You may have flooding in some areas that you consider highly unlikely. If you live along a canal or a man-made lake, those could fill up with water. You just got to be careful. You got to watch out, and most of all, heed the evacuation orders.
And a lot of the canals and lakes, man-made lakes, and that sort of thing are being drained and have been drained down to about 6 inches to a foot.
The 6:30 update is just about ready to get underway. We're told we might have some officials with the Public Works Department. That hasn't been confirmed just yet, but we have been trying to get some more information about exactly what will happen with the water supply in the event that we do take a real hard direct hit, and it does affect the mains. That is, if some of those are destroyed, how long our water supply might be out, how long we may be without pressure. So we're hoping to get some information there. It's also, I can tell you, getting more and more crowded here at the Emergency Management Center as officials continue to check in and bring us updates on their respective agencies. At this point, as I said, we're waiting for the news conference to begin. It should start in about 20 seconds or so. And we should have some updated information. So if you'll stand by with us, Henry, for just about 15 seconds here, we should be able to get underway.
Oh, Robert, we'll stand by as long as you need here at 610 WIOD, and we're also on the air at WSUN in the Tampa area, and that covers a lot of the west coast of Florida, which is now being told that it should get the same force winds that we're going to get here on the east coast of Florida, because the hurricane is not expected to lose any strength when it goes across the mainland of the peninsula. So all of you folks on the west coast, pay heed to what we're saying, because after it passes us, it's going to come pay a visit to you, and it's not going to be a pleasant visit. We're expecting an update any moment now from the Dade County Office of Emergency Preparedness, where Robert Pankow has been standing by throughout the day and will be throughout the night and throughout the day tomorrow. I hope you get a chance to catch a cat nap here and there, Robert.
Well, Henry, at this point, it's a little too crowded. There's not even room on the floors for a cat nap just yet. We're getting the official countdown now. We're 10 seconds away from an update here. And let's check in here in just a matter of seconds here. And we'll get the latest information here from the Emergency Operations Center. Stand by.
Hello, my name is Virginia Sanchez, and welcome back to the Emergency Operations Center here on Miller and Southwest 87th Avenue. Just a couple of notes, highlights for our 6:30 briefing. First of all, just like to mention that our Metrobus service will cease operation at 8 p.m. This evening. That is our regular scheduled service. I'm not referring to the evacuation buses, okay? So it's very important to keep that difference in mind. In addition, we keep getting messages from Jackson Memorial Hospital that people are still trying to check in there as if it were a shelter. And it's very important that you help us disseminate that information. Jackson Memorial, of course, is not a shelter. It will only operate to take emergency cases at this point, in addition to the pregnant women that we have signaled out in the past. There are several shelters that are pretty much full to capacity. That is North Miami Beach High, the Greek Orthodox Church, Hialeah Miami Lakes High, University Lakes Trailer, Brentwood Elementary, Skyway Elementary, and Miami Lakes Middle School. In addition to that,
the officers that have been working today are going to go home and rest up. As soon as the winds subside, the officers will come back fresh, and those officers that have worked through the storm will go home. So we should have at least half the police department out there, if not more.
thank you.
And Henry, as you heard, that is our latest update here at the Emergency Management Office, and the message is getting across. People who haven't evacuated need to stay home. Those who have evacuated or not yet but are still planning to, they need to do it now. Back to you, Henry.
Okay, thank you, Robert. That's Robert Pankow, who is keeping us updated each hour on the half hour from the Dade Emergency Operations Center out on, let's see, I guess around Galloway Road in southwest Dade. We welcome all the listeners to Coast 97.3 who are with us now and will be with us throughout the coverage of Hurricane Andrew. We also welcome those of you on the West Coast listening to WSUN. We'll try to tailor-make some forecasts and things for you, information that comes to us regarding the west coast of Florida, because you're expected to get it sometime tomorrow, and it being Andrew. Dan, the bus services, as we announced earlier, shut off at 8 o'clock. You won't be able to catch a Metro bus.
That's right. All regular service canceled at 8 o'clock. And as we just heard, it is time to take Andrew very seriously at this point. Leave the area. That, of course, at the very least in the areas that have been under orders to evacuate. And that includes a 400-mile stretch of the East Coast from Barrow Beach all the way down to the Keys, and at the very least from US 1 east to A1A. All of those areas should be evacuated if you haven't already. Areas that are under orders to evacuate No one is being allowed back into those areas that have been evacuated so far. Police and fire service will not be made available once we get into the thick of things here. So you want to keep that in mind if you're staying where you are, which you should not be. And things are only going to get worse before they get better as time goes on.
And right now, of course, the out islands of the Bahamas are getting the effects of Hurricane Andrew, especially Eleuthera, where a couple of hours ago now they started getting winds up over 120 miles an hour. It should be not long before New Providence and Nassau begins feeling the effects of this storm. We'll probably be in touch with the Bahamian meteorologist before this hour is out and give you some idea of what it's like in the area of New Providence.
We're close to the shoreline of either Broward or Dade County. Please, you've got to move inland away from that shoreline because the storm surge is the most dangerous part of the storm, and it could be as much as 10 to 12 feet above normal for the tides along the South Florida coastline wherever it makes landfall. So that could be very dangerous for you.
Bob, now, let's talk a little bit more about that storm tide. Are we talking about a wall of water that high, or are we talking about waves? Just what are we talking about when we talk about a storm surge?
What happens in a hurricane is it's a low pressure cell, and it tends to pull the level of all the water around up a little bit higher. So we're talking about maybe a 10-foot rise because of this low pressure pulling the
area. Go to a home of a friend or relative and take your pet with you and provide protection for that facility. To go then to a hotel or motel inland, and in last resort, because of the discomfort and the other problems, to go to a Red Cross shelter. And we encourage people to go to Red Cross shelters if they have no other place to go, because it's not a very comfortable place to go. It's very austere. You're crowding people. It's very, very bad. But I think that the studies that we've seen show that the majority of people that do show up are the lower income people who are salaried, for example, and have no opportunity to do otherwise. They can't afford the hotels. They can't afford to fly out of town. And they're also not being paid because they're not going to be working. So that's generally what the overall evaluation or analysis of people who go to shelter generally fall into. It's not degrading in any way. It just happens to be a fact.
So for the 7,000 in a shelter, how many more do you predict are not have evacuated?
Well, I would think that based on those figures, we have quite a large number of people who are moving inland and to a friend or relatives. No, Broward County now, in comparison to the 79 thing, 50% of the population of Broward County now lives west of State Road 7. That didn't exist back in those days. That was all undeveloped yet. So probably a lot of these people on the East Coast have people or friends inland in that western area, and that's why they've gone there. My family, for example, that's where they are right now.
Your family's in the western section of Broward. Do you feel they're safe?
Well, I live on the East Coast in the Rio Vista area, and we know the vulnerability, and I've practiced this. We've had our personal plan made, and that was always our intention to do. The thing is, we're getting them away from the tidal surge. We warned everyone, including our families, that in the western area there's no guarantee they're not going to get wet. The difference is they will not get that ocean surge, that killing force of waves battering against buildings or possible collapse. They're going to get all the other stuff, but they got to protect their houses against that. Rising water, simple rising water, is not a threat to life, but it depends on your individual situation. If you're frail, elderly, or so forth, if you get children, disease is the problem, health, but young people, relatively good health, no problem at all.
Well, you must base the evacuation area in part on how far that surge can come towards land. How far can it?
Well, that's the surge model you're looking at now. The surge model was a basis of several computer runs of various type storms. They arbitrarily picked I-95 as the most far inland mark. We argued that because the water is going to seek its own level based on that storm. It's going to go past I-95. We know that. But that's really a technical natural barrier, if you will, a dam of sorts. So beyond that, the real force is on the beach. The real force is on the beach, hitting the buildings, then it will flush itself in and gradually become minimal in force, but it will still be quite a bit of water, and it's salt water, and then rainwater on top of that. So you're talking about some dangerous levels, high levels. For example, we mentioned before, 7 to 10 feet of water. An average person is 5, 7, something like that. If you're in a house at that level, you're underwater. So if you're in a single-family home along the coast with that surge coming in, you may be in a house where you cannot survive because of the depth of the water.
Is this water that rises quickly, or is this a wall of water that comes towards the
combination? As the storm eye approaches, it pushes ahead of it this dome of water, and on top of that is wave action. And slowly you'll see the slow rise of the ocean as that dome of water comes in and seeks its own level as it overcomes the geographical lay of the land. And then it will gradually go back out as it flushes back and the storm passes.
Pretty scary stuff.
It is scary. We've seen it in other areas. It was very clearly demonstrated in the Charleston incident. We've all studied those films. We all talked to the people, and we know from their experience what exactly happened. And then today, in the age of video, we're able to see things we've never seen before.
I hate to be morbid here. Somebody's got to ask the question. Yeah, go ahead.
We have never speculated on the numbers. I will tell you there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be severely injured by some of these things that are happening. A lot of glass, a lot of debris flying. I don't want to scare people on that, but that's a fact. And a certain percentage of those injured will be dead people. And I don't want to even guess at a number. We found that in all of the storms, the better educated people are about the storms, the more we're able to communicate with them, the deaths are less and less and less. Charleston, for example, 5 people died. Those people were trying to do something with their boats, what they should have been doing, or playing with something related to electrical. That's the only losses we had in that storm. I think that speaks well of people.
Well, I wasn't actually going to ask you for a number. What I was going to ask you is, what kind of steps have you taken for tomorrow, after the devastation that might come, to attend a problem that could arise as far as fatalities go?
Well, you heard us talk earlier about taking people's names. We're going to try, if God forbid there's a lot of victims, we'll try with the medical examiner's help to identify all of those people. We'll give all the respect and honor we can to those survivors and try to identify them. We may, and I don't want to speak for the medical examiners, but we're going to treat all of those victims that we discover with all due respect.
Do you expect to discover any?
I think, this is an unknown. This is the first time this has happened here. I don't know who's out there and what part of the building they'll be in and what that might happen to that facility, so we can only speculate. But there's some people who are going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, there you have it, Henry. It is pretty frightening stuff, but as Mr. Amon put it, people can't be too scared because you can't be too careful. And they have, of course, made preparations in the event of a large loss of life.
Elaine, thank you. That is a rather sobering interview with Art St. Amand. And Bob Soper is with us here in the 610 WIOD Hurricane Center and has an update on Andrew right now, I believe. Bob?
All right, we just got the latest. It is now 200 miles east of Miami. That's a 25.4 north, 77.1 west. That's 200 miles east of Miami, still moving toward the west at 16 miles per hour. It has tropical storm winds all the way out to 105 miles from the center, but the strongest winds are in the eye wall, about 30 miles out from the center. If this keeps moving the way we expect it to move, we're going to see 40-mile-per-hour winds before this evening is over, and by daybreak tomorrow, along with high tides around 5 a.m., we're going to see the strongest force of this storm, likely to cause storm surges up to 7 to 10 feet along the east coast and over Biscayne Bay. Waves up to 9 to 13 feet are possible. Of course, coastal flooding is already beginning, and it's likely to continue through this evening, and then, of course, overnight, forget about it. Rip currents, also a problem. Nobody should be in that water out there. It's becoming more dangerous by the moment. In 1926 and 1928, we had a storm just about this strong. That one killed hundreds of people. Now, if you do everything that emergency officials are asking you to do, you should be out of harm's way. The current barometric pressure is 27.26 inches. That's 27.26, and that equals those folks, those two storms back in 1926. 1928 was the storm that blew the water out of Lake Okeechobee, and then they put the dike around the lake. Those of you in homes, we get a lot of questions about windows on your houses. Do you open one side or any of that stuff? No. Don't open the windows. You absolutely don't need to. It won't hurt your house one bit. However, windows don't fit all that tight in some cases in South Florida. You may need some towels to keep things dry inside your house. Beth, I understand you have someone on the phone for us.
In fact, we do. We have Governor Childs on the phone from Tallahassee. We have a kind of a weak connection, but we're going to try to see if we can make this connection now. Governor, can you hear me now?
It's a little better.
Okay. You are on the air with us on WIOD. You are up in Tallahassee at the Emergency Operations Center, correct?
That's right.
Can you tell us what the situation is up there?
Well, obviously, we're sitting up here hoping that everybody is getting out of the areas that they ought to be getting out of, trying to, facilitate and see that we get the help in place and on the way, and meeting with the federal counterparts and trying to just begin to organize what we'll have to do after the storm hits.
Obviously, Governor, this is a very serious situation. Hopefully residents have grasped that by now and have taken the necessary precautions. Do you have any words to the residents who may not be heeding these warnings? We are trying as many ways as possible to make that very clear to them.
Very, very dangerous storm. It looks like it will be the worst storm that has hit Florida or any place on the East Coast since 1935. It's stronger than Hugo. You know the damage that it wrecked in Charleston. Try to ride out anybody that's in an evacuation.
Yes, hello, Governor.
Yes.
I believe we just lost contact for a moment there. In fact, things are getting kind of wild outside here as we speak. I can hear our metal shutters falling from the windows. We are hearing reports that damage, of course, it's not easy to predict, but that damage could exceed that was seen for Hurricane Hugo. At what point can we start contacting federal officials to try to take care of some of that and get some help?
Well, we've already contacted them. We're preparing a disaster order now, and we will be giving that to the federal people tonight.
Mm-hmm. What would that enable the state to do?
Well, it will enable us to get, federal assistance in a number of areas, including some additional and loan help, all kind of areas like that. They're giving us all of the cooperation that they can.
Governor, I assume you and your staff are going to ride this out at the emergency center.
That's right. This is where our best communication is, and so I hope to get down there as soon as the storm hits. But right now, this is where I am.
All right, Governor Lawton Chiles in Tallahassee at the Emergency Operations Center. We will try to keep in touch with you, sir, best as we can. And Henry and Dan and Bob, the governor sounds, obviously, like he has concern in his voice and expressing, frankly, the sentiment that I hear from a lot of lifelong Florida residents, and that is they've never seen anything of this magnitude.
That's right. None of us have. And the governor, I'm glad he's concerned.
I'm Miller. I'm with Metro-Dade Communications Department, and we'll give you some updated information. Right now, all bridges are locked down, including the Miami River. We have crews out, so the Public Works Department is out and ready and alert. The Rickenbacker Causeway, the gates are open. There are no tolls to worry about, and there's unrestricted traffic right now on the Rickenbacker. All trash and recycling centers are now closed. So if people have trash that they have not taken to those centers, they should secure it and lock it down at their house or take it into their garages, but do not leave it out front. There's no place for it to go. And we have some information as far as updates on the shelters. There's some new shelters that have either reached or are near capacity, and we're urging people not to go to those centers if at all possible. They include Miami Edison Senior High School, Highland Oaks Middle School, Citrus Grove Elementary School, Auburndale Elementary School, and Lake Stevens Elementary School. According to our Red Cross officials, they can handle 70,000 people, evacuees in these centers. Right now we are nearing 20,000. Traffic has gotten much more brisk at the centers, so if you are planning to evacuate, we strongly suggest that you do it now. We'll be introducing now Kate Hale, the Director of Emergency Management, to give you a little bit more information. Kate?
Well, as we get into the final phase of the evacuation prior to the arrival of tropical storm force winds and hurricane force winds, which are expected late this evening with the hurricane force winds coming onshore sometime in the morning hours, we unfortunately are at the point in the evacuation that was inevitable. We have completely exhausted our resources here and are going to be unable to accept any other request for transportation of any sort. Those people who are on bus pickup points, that will maintain, but those people who've been calling in to the hurricane hotline requesting assistance in evacuating, we simply are going to have all we can do to take care of those people that we currently have on file or who have called in over the last 24 hours and requested assistance. I can guarantee you this is the one point the county never wanted to have to get to, but unfortunately we are totally dependent on our Metro vehicles. The school board has released its vehicles, so we've got what we've got left to work with, and that's it, and we are not going to be able to accept any more registrations, which means wherever you are, you need to do the best you can to batten down, get into an interior room, and be ready to ride out the storm there. Unfortunately, we're just not going to be able to offer that kind of evacuation, special evacuation assistance after this point. Any questions?
Hello, I'm Danny Alvarez, Assistant Director of the Metro-Dade Transit Agency. As it was previously announced, at 6 p.m. we shut down the Metro Mover operations in downtown Miami. At 7 o'clock there was a train leaving Okeechobee Road and another one at Dadeland South. Those two trains are about reaching the end of the line right now, and at that point Metro Rail will be shut down. The Sunday schedule of Metro Bus will be coming to an end at 8 p.m. and that is only for regular scheduled Metro Bus service. Those people waiting at the predetermined pickup points will be taken to shelters. The buses will continue to run as long as the weather permits. We will continue throughout the evening, and we will get as many people out to the evacuation shelters as the weather permits. As far as the announcement made, all of the vehicles that have been at our disposal to take people places have all been booked up, and unfortunately we cannot take any more reservations at this point for people who wish to evacuate. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn over to Lieutenant Tharp of Florida Highway Patrol.
Thank you. Just briefly, right now we have information that all the traffic heading southbound to the Keys has been completely cut off. The northbound traffic is very light. All the causeways to the beaches have been closed, and traffic is extremely slow from northbound Miami to West Palm Beach out of the Turnpike and I-95.
Briefly, I'm Armando Vidal, Deputy Director of Dade County Public Works. Our crews have been already positioned and the equipment has been dispersed, ready to respond tomorrow. There is really no change from our last report to you all.
In closing, I'd like to add one more thing, and that is an appeal for medical volunteers to go to the public shelters. We have large numbers of people in the public shelters, and unfortunately some of the organizations which committed to provide that medical support in the public shelters have not honored that commitment. So we are seriously in need of medical personnel to volunteer in the public shelters. This is an opportunity for you to really serve your community in a very, very needed way. So please, if you have those kind of skills and you can get to one of our public shelters, it would be extremely appreciated. Thank you.
Questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And Henry, there you have it. That's our latest update here at the Emergency Operations Center. As you heard, again, very valuable information in reference to Metro being able to pick up people around the county and take them to shelters. Apparently at this point they're overwhelmed and unable to do so anymore. As things change here, we'll bring you that information immediately and live, and our next update at this point will be, we understand, at 8:30.
All right, Robert, thank you very much. That's Robert Pankow at Emergency Operations, and Robert will keep you informed anytime anything new comes out. We need to find out what's happening out on our streets and highways, and I understand that Joe Brennan has had his nap and is raring to go again, so let's check in with Joe Brennan and find out what's going on, Joe.
This is Mike Open. We are told by airport officials that Miami International will shut down when winds reach upwards of 55 miles per hour, and the Fort Lauderdale International Airport shut down as of 7:30 tonight. Bob, Hurricane Andrew is certainly a storm to be reckoned with as he sets his sights on South Florida. Certainly time to take him seriously.
Exactly. The more we watch the path of the storm on satellite loops and on the radar pictures that we have, we're seeing this move directly west. It looks like it's not varying too much. It's wobbling a little bit. That's what they do. The eye wobbles a little bit, but it is tending to move due west toward basically a hit on downtown Miami, the center of it. Now, as we've talked about, the right front quadrant of any storm, any hurricane, is going to be the toughest part. So that would mean anywhere north of wherever the eye makes landfall is going to get hit very hard. It's got hurricane force winds of 150 miles per hour. Only 5 more miles per hour, and it would be one of the worst storms in history, Category 5. That hasn't happened very often. The 1935 Key storm and Camille both had those kinds of winds.
Yes, the governor of the state of Florida today authorized
the emergency activation of approximately 1,500 National Guardsmen for local disaster and recovery support in the southeast Florida area. Selected units will be reporting into the local area over the next 24 hours. Also in the Miami area, the 1st Battalion of the 124th Infantry Regiment has been activated, and we request all members to report immediately.
Are you in coordination with the Metro-Dade police?
Yes, we are. Once again, the unit, everybody should be, is the 1st Battalion of the 124th Infantry Regiment.
At this time, if there are no more questions in English, I'd like to just do the same report in Spanish.
And Dan, there you have it. That's our latest update here. As Virginia Sanchez just mentioned, County Aviation Director Rick Elder not assigning any new flights to any gates beyond 8 o'clock. Operations have not ceased entirely out there, but apparently it's imminent, and we'll have that information for you as soon as that becomes available. You made a request earlier for some more information on the shelters. Let's go back and review those real quick. Some of the most recent ones, Dunbar Elementary. That is closed now in full capacity.
Okay, now we have
Al?
Yeah, let's see. Al, can you hear us?
I got you. How you doing?
Great. Oh, well, so far, how are you doing is the question.
Can you hear me, Al?
Yeah, Chuck, I can hear you.
You probably can't hear Bob as well as me, and for some reason that's because of the way we have the phone hooked up. Just tell us your situation. We're very curious as to how you're doing and what kind of conditions you're having there.
Okay, I am presently talking to you from Paradise Island, and we have had very strong winds, hurricane force winds here since about 8 o'clock. Prior to that, we've had gusty winds since about 3 this afternoon. The wall of rain that Bob was talking about on the radar, we have been experiencing. We are fortunate here on Paradise Island. We have not as yet been without electricity, but the wind has uprooted trees. We've checked with ZNS, which is the radio station here in the Bahamas, and they have had reports of debris and trees down and roads closed and so forth. I think the main thing that I want to stress in calling is the fact that this storm is for real. The winds are of a magnitude that, unless you've been through a hurricane before, you can't quite understand. Also is the fact that we have it's not a Bob Soper meteorological piece of equipment here, but we do have a means of measuring barometric pressure, wind speed, wind direction, and so forth. And I think the main thing here is the fact that we have watched since 3 o'clock this afternoon, we have watched the wind go a complete 360-degree cycle. In addition to that, the good news is that within the last 10 minutes we have seen so on right around, and as I speak to you right now, it's in the south again and working its way into the southeast.
So is there any indication from the authorities over that way as to when the conditions that you've been experiencing are going to pass, or does it seem to have gotten better in the last hour or so to you?
Well, outside, I can't say that it's any better. My only indication is the fact that we have had a slight increase in barometric pressure, which is the first we've seen since this morning. Based upon your latitude and longitude fixes for the storm, we put the eye just about due north of us right now.
All right, I think Bob may have a couple of questions for you, too, while we have you on the line, Al. And boy, we're lucky. The phone line is great, and we've had some problem with lines from the Bahamas late this afternoon, early tonight. But, Bob, you want to join me?
Yeah, Chuck, the thing that I wanted to stress with Al is it looks like you guys are on the backside of the storm now, and it looks like it has already passed through the Nassau Paradise Island area.
Relay because I can't.
Okay, it seems like Bob thinks that it sounds like, by the way you describe, that you are on the backside of this thing now, and it's passing you by.
That's based upon the fact that we've had the rise in the barometric pressure. That's the impression that we have.
Al, do we have your number, or did you call us? Because we'd like to talk to you again as the night goes on.
I always call you guys.
You're calling us on your bill. That's terrific.
That's great.
Al.
What a guy.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll be joining you again in a little while. WIOD's Elaine Ettore now joining us from Broward at the Emergency Center there at 9/11 at News Talk Radio 610, WIOD, and WFLC 97.3 FM. We're also on WSUN in the Tampa-St. Pete area tonight. Elaine, what's the latest?
Chuck, at the last count, there were 9,000 people in shelters in Broward County. Now, a lot of people say they don't want to leave their homes because of the fear of opportunistic criminals looting their houses, that sort of thing. I just spoke with Broward Sheriff's Office Major Ralph Page. He says they are taking precautions against that sort of thing.
We know where the evacuation areas are. We have a Bravo. We're in 12-hour shifts. We have people out on the street. We have two deputies in each car. We have as much saturation as absolutely possible. Plus, we have had a hurricane preparedness and disaster preparedness plan for years, and we're now getting to implement it. One of the things we do is an intelligence gathering function. We hit the areas where we know there's a possibility of criminal action, and we try to identify the individuals who might be involved. So there is a law enforcement function that's going on and will continue to go on. Any reports of looting so far? No, none whatsoever.
Now, there are also precautions against looting in the aftermath of the hurricane here. Also, I wanted to mention there are no problems in Broward with getting the homeless off the street. I understand in Dade County that they are planning on riding it out under I-395, but Major Page tells me that there was not one homeless person that they had offered to take to a shelter who turned them down. Chuck?
All right, good. Thank you, Elaine. Brings us to the in fact, are you still on the line? Because one of the questions that might come up is whether or not some of the Broward shelters, Elaine, are at capacity or over capacity, or does there appear to be room for everybody?
Thank you for bringing that up. I did mean to mention Dillard High School is at capacity, and I believe there's one other, though I don't have the name handy now, but if you do go there, they'll simply send you to the closest one. There's no danger at all if you want to go to a shelter of not having a place to stay tonight. Because you really need to have been out of your house by now, or at least leave now.
All right, good. Thank you very much. That's Elaine Ettore at the Emergency Center in Broward. Brings us to the list of evacuation centers in Dade County that are at or near capacity. And we'll run Myer in the WIOD News Center. We have Bob Soper standing by. He's taken a look at some of the latest numbers on Hurricane Andrew. The picture becoming all the more clearer. Just to bring you up to date, Bob figures that within the next 2.5 hours, we are going to get some of those heavy winds. And do not be surprised if those heavy winds, which will then escalate into hurricane force winds and stay with us for a long time, don't be surprised if they last for perhaps upwards of 12 hours. Let's say roughly midnight tonight till about noon tomorrow, even well after the storm has passed. Do not be surprised if we start to become buffeted with these winds over the next 2.5 to 3 hours, and we'll continue to be pelted with those winds for well into Monday. Doesn't seem like Sunday night, but I guess that doesn't matter right now. WIOD's Dan Stewart back on the road again. He's at South Beach, and I guess the word, Dan, is that there's plenty of free parking tonight.
Chuck, for once, that's true. I can't get over what I have seen going down Collins Avenue, heading down Ocean Drive, half dozen cars, 2 of them police cruisers, and that's it. I mean, there's nothing here. You talk about the lull before the storm. You can feel something is in the air. Something is ready to hit. We're right now at 10th Street. We have a couple of cruisers here that are keeping a watchful eye out for looters.
We're starting to lose that signal from Dan, who is at 10th Street on South Beach. We'll have to try to recontact him. But I guess the good news out of that report is that Miami Beach, at least that part of Miami Beach, is virtually deserted right now. So the evacuation has taken hold, and we don't have the what might be some of the revelry that would accompany some sort of a hurricane celebration. People are taking this pretty seriously, and they're staying away. We just talked to Steve James, who was the Orlando reporter, who joined us for some reports earlier today. And Steve reports he's got a hotel room on Miami Beach, and there are very few people staying in that hotel right now, but that he's got a safe room for the time being. And most people in Miami Beach have gotten the message and have gotten off. Remember, the Miami Beach, of course, being where it's located, a city of 100,000 people, is right in the middle of that evacuation area, and most people on Miami Beach should have evacuated if they have not already. Let me run down, before we take another break here, let me run down the last hour's storm center cancellations. These are updates, many of these reports and pieces of information about cancellations, etc. Again, Arthur, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
We talked to some people near Nassau a short while ago. They indicated that you might be feeling the backside of Andrew right now, and while conditions are still pretty rough, you're feeling the secondary effects of the hurricane. How about would you describe it for us?
Yes, minutes ago we had the heaviest rainfall yet, and accompanying that were very strong gusty winds, gusts to 105 miles per hour. The system is moving further to the west and is now in the Berry Islands, and will continue to move towards South Florida.
So, how long have the Bahamas been feeling the effects of either tropical conditions or hurricane conditions? Has it been 6-7 hours so far now?
Yes, maybe even more. The island of Eleuthera was under the brunt of the hurricane for about 6 hours.
How has Nassau stood compared to the rest of the Bahamas?
Well, in terms of damage, we can't say, because where I'm at the airport proper, so I really wouldn't know what is going on in the interior just now. We wouldn't be able to furnish that information.
Arthur, is there any indication when flights might pick up again in Nassau?
Flights?
Yes.
Not before tomorrow. Definitely no flights tonight.
Mm-hmm. Bob Soper's with us, too, our meteorologist, and if I have to relay the question, I will, but Bob, jump on the line here with Arthur.
Okay, Arthur, what I wanted to ask you is what has been your strongest wind recorded so far anywhere in the Bahamas? We did see one gust of 120 in northern Eleuthera. Have you seen anything more than that?
Have you seen anything over that 120 in Eleuthera, Arthur, as a wind gust in the Bahamas?
No. That was a report that we had, 120 miles per hour. We didn't exceed that value at all.
What are the conditions, if you have numbers as of this hour, at the airport in Nassau?
We are reporting steadily now, 65 knots. The hurricane now has moved further to the west, as I said. So now we are experiencing the trailing end, and conditions now are improving. We expect considerable improvement after 11 p.m. this evening.
Do you have any official word on, I know you mentioned that it's hard to talk about damages right now because that's still being gathered. Have you heard anything about injuries or fatalities? Because we had been hearing reports that perhaps upwards of 4 people had died in the Bahamas.
I can't confirm that at all. We haven't heard anything about any casualties so far. But maybe tomorrow, in a report, we'd be able to give you something on it.
Well, Arthur, you have to be sighing some relief here.
Yes, of course.
We'll check back with you a little later tonight.
Hey.
Okay, that's Arthur Roll, who is a chief meteorologist in the Bahamas, the Bahamian chief meteorologist, and he is, I guess, in Nassau, wouldn't he be, Bob? And
right, indeed, New Providence Island, and that's got to be this location. I think the big problem is nobody wants to go outside to look around, and I don't blame them.
No.
Who'd want to go out in this mess anyway?
And even though they are on the trail side now, they have just in the last half hour or so reported some of their heaviest rains yet. So that's the aftermath.
Yeah, I was looking at the radar picture, and it seems to be lagging a little bit behind what the reports of the winds and the barometric pressure rises. So there is still some banding of rain behind this center of this storm, no question. And as it moves farther away, the barometer will go up more, and of course the rains will ease up finally.
We're just receiving word that the Monroe County Emergency Management and the Sheriff's Department have phased out the last part of their evacuation from the Upper Keys as of 9 o'clock officially. Persons in the Keys who are watching Miami TV coverage of the hurricane must keep in mind that although the threat to the Miami area is receiving most media attention, the Keys are also in the path of the hurricane. The fact that the Miami area is the likeliest target does not lessen the threat to the islands and the Keys. And even if the hurricane stays on its due west course, hurricane conditions are still in store for the Keys. For those of you who have not left the Keys, your options are as follows. Before the arrival of tropical storm conditions, that's anything over a 39-mile-an-hour wind, you should get to the sturdiest structure available, so as long as it is above 10 to 12 feet of elevation and not directly exposed to open water. If your home does not meet those requirements, a number of buildings are still available as refuges of last resort. These refuges are not staffed as hurricane shelters. You should plan on providing your own food, water, and bedding. Whatever supplies might be available at the refuges will probably not be enough to go around. There are still a couple of places left in the Keys that we'll mention here briefly. The Scottish Rite Temple on Eaton Street, that's in Key West, called Refuges of Last Resort. The Glenn Archer School on White Street. In Marathon, the Switlick School is a designated refuge. In the Upper Keys, Plantation Elementary School and Coral Shores High School are refuges. Various other buildings are also being used. None of them are ideal places for riding out a hurricane. So those of you in the Keys who, for whatever reason, didn't get out as of last night when the first emergency in Monroe County was declared, you're in for a rough ride, and you're going to have to make the best of it. And I wouldn't want to be down there, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, it's pretty rough down there. As a matter of fact, it's going to get even rougher tomorrow as this entire thing continues to move across the southern part of the peninsula. As it exits on the other side, it looks like it's going to be almost as strong or perhaps as strong, and that means that they'll start to feel those northwest winds coming around the top of this hurricane and pushing the waves into the all of the Keys, really. Basically, the middle and lower Keys not going to have as much trouble tonight as the upper Keys, but then the middle and lower Keys more likely during the day tomorrow.
Interesting. Yeah. Robert Pankow joining us now with a Southern Bell update. Robert, what do we have?
Well, Chuck, joining us live here at the Emergency Operations Center is Spiro Canton from Southern Bell.
And we can almost see an eye. As a matter of fact, we can see an eye in the storm from the radar picture. And when you extend a line directly out from Coral Gables, that center of that storm is south of that line. So we're looking at possible landfall south of the city of Miami. Perhaps Coral Gables may be south of that, which would mean really almost all of Dade County would be one of the hardest hit spots.
Okay, that's a great calculation and possibly some insight into just where this is going to make land. Since we're beginning the top of the hour, let me introduce everybody again. It's Chuck Myer in the WIOD News Center, along with
going throughout the area, trying to pick up the area homeless people and take them to various shelters, but many of them are reluctant to leave. In fact, many of them say they're going to ride it out as long as they can and stay right in Bicentennial Park. So, and I just spoke with a few police officers down here who, by the way, have the bridge over into the Port of Miami blocked for obvious reasons. As a matter of fact, anywhere east that we have noticed so far, anywhere east of Bayshore Drive, you cannot get onto Miami Beach now. They will let some press vehicles down there, and I tell you, to take a look down Ocean Drive is such an eerie feeling. I have never seen it that deserted. The whole places are boarded up now, and
down here at the Port of Miami, again, as it's sealed off. Bayside is sealed off now, and the few police officers that I just spoke with, I asked them, at what point do they make the call to say, hey, we better get out of here ourselves? That's apparently up to them. They make that call whenever they feel threatened and feel that it's high time to get out of here. So, like I say, the focus down here now, Chuck, is for the city's homeless. They're trying to pick them up, take them to shelters, but as I mentioned, many are reluctant to leave. For now, I'm Dan Stewart reporting live from the Port of Miami.
Okay, Dan, thank you. 10:15 at WIOD. FP&L has some new safety tips out. Please limit calling FPL offices to only reporting downed power lines or unsafe electrical equipment. This is anticipating problems that will occur post-hurricane. During the early hours of storm damage, FP&L needs to keep these phone lines open to respond to electrical emergencies. Due to the severity of Hurricane Andrew, should you experience an outage, be prepared to be without power for several days or longer. Please stay clear of any downed power lines. Report them to FP&L, police, or fire agencies. Remember, these reports will be given priority, and that's why we want FP&L wants lines cleared so that only downed power lines can be reported, or any unsafe equipment. Turn off and unplug any unnecessary electrical equipment like sensitive electronics. Stay indoors during the storm. Don't venture outside until given the all clear from emergency officials. Avoid use of open flames while cooking indoors. Don't use charcoal or other fossil fuels to cook with, as they create deadly fumes if used indoors. Now, it's not a bad idea to be barbecuing afterwards when it's all over, but you don't want to be barbecuing indoors. And I know it sounds stupid for us to even mention that, but people have been known to asphyxiate that way.
They sure have.
Yeah,
you cannot have charcoal indoors.
That is correct. If you're operating a portable generator, make sure it's placed in a well-ventilated area. Even that's a bit risky. It may be necessary. If you experience a power outage, use flashlights instead of candles or kerosene lamps. A gust of wind through the door, of course, could result in a fire. It's especially important not to be using candles during the storm activity. Even in the aftermath, it's awfully dangerous compared to flashlights and batteries. And, you know, we can't say enough, Bob, because in the wake of Hugo, most people who died in Hurricane Hugo died of accidents afterward. Many of them drowned, but many were killed by trying to operate chainsaws. Something that's unlikely to happen right here in a heavily urbanized area, but there will be downed tree limbs, and people will get out the chainsaw and have an accident and bleed to death before somebody can arrive to help them. And even more dangerous is fire, because there were a number of fires post-Hugo in which people without power tried to burn either oil, kerosene, or candles, and it knocked them over, and next thing you know, the house is on fire.
Yeah, you got to be extra careful with open flames, especially as you pointed out, while you're stuck in the house. When the hurricane is over us, there's no one can get to you. The fire officials, firemen cannot get over to you to put out the fire. So what you started, you're really stuck with, and that's no way to have during a hurricane. By the way, a lady called to say that if you filled your bathtub with water, it'd be a good idea to keep an eye on your small children. You know, you don't want to have any accidents of that kind.
Yeah.
You might want to think about keeping the bathroom door shut, you know, so that and supervise the small children, which I'm sure you'd want to do anyway.
That's a good suggestion. You know, the whole idea of filling up the bathtub is to have a reservoir of maybe some cleaning water for later on. Earlier today, we had the problem in Miami with some low water pressure in many areas, and that prompted many city officials to ask that folks not use their water so much. I think a lot of people were filling up jugs, filling up bathtubs, and maybe, hey, for all we know, there were a lot of sprinklers on today for no reason at all.
No reason at all.
But we did have some water pressure problems in the city of Miami. To this extent, it's understandable, and that is there's been a run on bottled water for a couple of days, and you've been pretty much shut out of it at the stores, so why not use the tap water and start to store it in the fridge or to freeze some. But if we're overusing water, then we're hurting it for everybody else. But you know, we're into this time of the evening now Bob, where it is literally the calm before the storm. People are off the streets. People are just battening down the hatches, waiting and waiting. And probably in the next 2 hours, we'll start to see those conditions begin. Next 3 to 5 hours, as you pointed out, the hurricane conditions could be kicking in. And then it's just hold on and wait, and we'll see what emerges and who emerges maybe 8-9 hours from now.
Yeah, exactly right. What we expect is those tropical storm winds to really become more nasty around midnight, and then around, say, 5 or 6 in the morning, we'll start to feel the hurricane force winds. That should last until maybe 10 or 11, and then everything should start to go back down toward tropical storm force winds.
Well, that appears to be it. Virginia Sanchez told us it looked like about 10 o'clock would be the end of flights, departures, and arrivals, but we'll look for a clarification. I know we're down to a few seconds before the briefing begins, but very quickly, the following 5 evacuation facilities or shelters in Broward are about at capacity. Please avoid them. Sheridan Votech, Lauderhill Middle School, Pasadena Lake School, Hollywood Hills Middle School, and Sheridan Park School on Southwest 89th. 10:30 at WIOD, WFLC, WSUN, and now back to Robert Pankow.
Chuck, the briefing is underway.
The Operations Center from Metro-Dade County. With me at this time is Mr. Stewart from Southern Bell, who's going to talk to you about mobile phones, what kind of service we can expect from Southern Bell in the next day or so, and also address any questions concerning the operation of 911. Before we do that, there are a couple of messages I'd like to get across. That is, Miami International Airport as of 10:10 p.m. still remained open. We were holding off on departure of 2 cargo planes at that time, and as far as I am told, those have not yet taken off, and the airport is not officially closed. As soon as there is an official announcement, we will inform you. As far as Jackson Memorial Hospital is concerned, approximately 250 maternity cases have checked into the East Tower. They have successfully boarded up and closed Jackson North. And I am told the emergency room, along with the trauma room, is quiet at this time. However, they are on standby, awaiting any type of emergencies or injuries. I'm also told that the emergency room is also being boarded up, but it's only this is only being done as a precaution at this time. Also, the city of Miami Beach would like me to tell all of you that Miami Beach is still transporting residents from City Hall. City Hall is located at 1700 Convention Center Drive. For those people who cannot get to City Hall on their own, there are 3 phone numbers they can call, and someone will try to coordinate with you and getting you to City Hall so that we can evacuate you from the beach. Those 3 numbers are 673-7111, 673-7870, and 673-7142. Let me just repeat those 3 numbers again. This only pertains to City of Miami Beach, and we're talking about individuals who want to get to the City Hall in order to leave the beach. The numbers are 673-7111, 673-7870, and 673-7142. If you don't have any questions at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Canton from Southern Bell.
Thank you, Virginia. Just to segue into that a little bit, we do have technicians, emergency technicians, at all the hospitals, the major hospitals in Dade County and in Monroe County, Baptist, Jackson
Jackson and Fisherman's Hospital in the Keys.
Beach here in North Miami. I don't know if Bob Soper is still standing by. I don't know what warrants gale force winds, but it certainly feels it out here right at the moment. If you can hear the winds in the background, it is very strong. We've seen a couple of rip currents already, and you can see the white caps on the...
Well, that's what I feared, that our two-way may break up a little bit with Dan. But,
Chuck, are you still there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Chuck, we have got sand blowing up on us. The waves look as though they're about 3 to 4 feet high right at the moment. No one in sight here on the beach. Every place has been evacuated. A lot of people have heeded the advice, obviously, but a lot of people have not tied things down, so that may make for a lot of problems as the hours go on. Again, very, very strong winds here out in North Miami Beach right at the moment, and the tides are kicking up as well. Live on North Miami Beach, I'm Dan Stewart, News Talk Radio 610, WIOD.
Okay, Dan, thank you again for that report. We have our hourly press briefing from the Dade Emergency Center coming up in 5 minutes, and we'll try to pick up that feed live. Usually Robert Pankow's been bringing it to us. We'll go to it just straight up. Gives us an opportunity to take a break. If you're just joining us, you're listening to continuing coverage of the incoming Hurricane Andrew. The latest numbers on it in the minutes ahead. You're listening to continuous coverage of Hurricane Andrew on WIOD, WFLC in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, WSUN, St. Pete, Tampa, and Clearwater, and WSB Atlanta. It's 11:25.
On the latest with Hurricane Andrew, there are a couple of things I'd like to highlight for you. A note from Jackson Memorial Hospital. For some reason, I think residents are not getting the message across, and even though we've repeated this many, many times, Jackson is not a shelter. The residents continue to go there. They are being turned away. We please urge all residents not to use Jackson for shelter purposes. In other words, instead of going there, people should be going to the right location. You only waste time by going somewhere that you eventually will not be able to get in. Jackson is currently accepting all high-risk pregnancy patients. In other words, earlier we had said that only women who were about ready to deliver or about 3 weeks from delivery, or those who were pregnant and were also diabetic, or those who were expecting twins and were in the seventh month will be allowed to go to the East Tower. Now I'm told that all high-risk pregnancy patients are encouraged to go to JMH East Tower. Of course, again, I emphasize these are women who originally, from the very beginning, were scheduled to give birth at Jackson. Also, it's important that these women don't bring children, okay? We don't want them to bring any other dependent as well, whether it's spouse or minor children. In addition to that, Miami International Airport was officially closed this evening at about 11:57 p.m. I am told we currently have around 2,500 people who are going to spend the night at MIA. We have made special provisions for them. We have Metro Fire personnel there, Metro Police. They will also be taken care of in terms of water and food. Some vendors are providing food to them that will be open, and other people are donating food as well. Also, the Hialeah Miami Lakes Senior High shelter, I'm told, is double normal capacity. In other words, please, we urgently request that no one go there any longer, and please go to an alternative location. Also, there is a note here to people with special needs. Excuse me. The Miami Carroll City High School Evacuation Center, which previously we had designated as a special needs unit, has had a generator failure. So for that reason, we are requesting that people with special needs can no longer be accepted there and should urge, and we are urging them, of course, to go to other available shelters. Please stay tuned into TV and radio. They continue to broadcast those locations for you, and it's important that if you, of course, are planning to go to a shelter and are not there, you do so. You go there immediately. Okay?
This is Kate Hale, the Director of Emergency.
At this point, the evacuation has basically come to a conclusion. There are still some buses out there picking up people, taking them to shelters, but for the most part, it appears that the evacuation process is just about drawing to a close. We still have our hurricane hotline in operation, 596-8735. Government agencies are all bringing their preparations to a conclusion, anticipating the arrival of tropical storm force winds over the next hour or two, with the hurricane making landfall in the morning. We urge each and every one of you, if you are not where you're going to be, to please get to wherever you're going to ride out this storm as quickly as possible. Bring your own preparations to a close. We will be here at the Emergency Operations Center monitoring the situation and be ready to go as soon as the storm passes through the area to determine what sort of damages Dade County has sustained and to get into operation to initiate the recovery as soon as it is humanly possible to do so. Thank you. Okay.
And I think we're going to get the briefing in Spanish now, so we'll drop out. That is the latest briefing from the Dade Emergency Center, and as Kate Hale just pointed out, we're into the final phases of the evacuation here in South Florida. 1 million people, about 500,000 or more in Dade County, another 430,000 in Broward County, are in evacuation areas. Roughly speaking, areas east of US 1 in both counties. These are evacuation areas where there's just people who are too susceptible to the onslaught of this hurricane to stick around, and the evacuation has been underway roughly since about 8 o'clock this morning local time, with the announcement that hurricane warnings had gone up. Bob Soper, our meteorologist, joining me now, and we're projecting ahead. There's already a call for activity in Galveston, Texas later this week because of the hurricane.
We got to figure it's going to go somewhere after us, of course. And on the 27th, the broad outlook is that it may be moving across the Gulf of Mexico if it hangs together. There's a lot of ifs here. At a forward speed of 16 miles per hour toward the west, that next biggest spiral band is going to be I think the first notion that this is really something to deal with.
All right. Bob, hold the line, because in the minutes ahead we'll be getting back to you. We'll also be going to the Hurricane Center and WIOD's Catherine Lister in just a minute. We did ask Joe Brennan to be prepared for another Skywatch 610 traffic report. Just before we go to Joe, I do have to mention this is WIOD, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and the Palm Beaches. WFLC FM 97.3 FM, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. We're also being heard right now on WSUN, St. Petersburg, Tampa, and Clearwater, and WSB Atlanta at 1141. Let's bring on Joe with Skywatch 610 traffic.
All right, Chuck, we now have reported some type of medical emergency, Northwest 7th Avenue, 119th Street. Police fire rescue units rolling to that scene, so look for some emergency crews there. If you're out and about, Northeast 167th Street, where it meets Biscayne Boulevard, the signal lights malfunctioning, we understand at that point. And also we have some type of police activity now around Northeast 175th Street at 4th Avenue. That just in as well, apparently Metro Dade Police there. Now, most of Dade County is settled down a bit. Don't see a whole lot of activity out on the roadways. Same for Broward County. Most of the drivers trying to head northward out of Broward County at this point, and really getting out of Palm Beach County also. A lot of that flow up north of Jupiter, though, continues in towards Orlando. We spoke earlier with our Metro Traffic Office in Orlando. They're saying they're getting a lot of motorists moving into the area now, but there's not a lot of hotel space, so if you're looking to bed down for the night there, not a whole lot of luck. It looks like you'll have to move on further north, probably, of course, Daytona Beach, maybe Jacksonville, your next best alternates. Other than that, not much news to report except for pretty smooth-moving travel out in Dade or Broward counties. Of course, you want to try and get where you want to be immediately, because this thing, it gets closer and closer. Palm Beach County with nothing much to report new either, other than those Coast Turnpike, and 95 delays leaving the Palm Beach County area. It looks like it's settled down for the most part, though, and really north of Palm Beach is where all the activity is now. I'm Joe Brennan, Skywatch 610, WIOD.
Joe, thank you very much. It's 11:42 at WIOD, WFLC, WSUN, and WSB. I think I've included everybody. From the National Hurricane Center, WIOD's Catherine Lister joining me now. Catherine.
Well, word here from the National Hurricane Center. If you haven't battened down the hatches, it's too late to start doing that now. Dr. Bob Sheets, the director here, says that between now and about midnight, we can expect the first bands of rain to begin approaching the mainland, first gusts of strong winds. The hurricane force winds and the heavy rain should approach between 2 and 3 a.m., possibly closer to 2 o'clock. And the center of the storm expected to move into the Miami area about 8 a.m. Now, Dr. Sheets does point out that in between those bands, there'll be heavy rain and stronger winds. Then it will appear to be weaker and then once again pick up. So he says don't be fooled into thinking that the worst is over. The storm is a system of bands and it'll come and go as it moves on shore. Another point to note here, maximum sustained winds are right now about 140 miles an hour. That does not necessarily mean that that's the force that the hurricane will hit with. He says to expect between 15 and 20 mile an hour fluctuations of the wind. So it could go higher, but more likely it could drop a little bit in strength as it comes ashore here.
Okay, Catherine, we'll stay tuned, and I'll tell you one thing. The National Hurricane Center building supposedly is one of the most hurricane-proof buildings in South Florida.
Well, I'd like to think so. A lot of people here have brought their families, the people who work here, of course. It's not a center, and I even saw the family dog being housed here. A lot of stuff on top of the building, though, and they're wondering how well that's going to hold up or if there's going to be trouble with satellite dishes, etc., flying off.
And Jennifer Rehm, when she was there earlier today, reported that some Hurricane Center personnel had flown to Washington, D.C. earlier this morning, I guess in anticipation of any problems with logistics or electronics at our local office in Coral Gables, that they might be able to at least pick up the slack with some expertise from Washington, D.C., although that's, I guess, a bit of a guess on my part.
Well, you're actually right. You're right on the head there. The biggest fear here was that maybe communications would be knocked out, not necessarily the building, but communications and the ability to let South Floridians know what's going on, and that's why that team was sent to Washington. They're capable of picking up as soon as, if there were a problem here, they could pick right up from there and continue on with the advisories and the information.
And not to add any more alarm to what is obviously a very trying and alarming situation for us in South Florida, but Bob Soper has been mentioning that just the way that the eye is pictured in some of those radar shots from earlier, it's real possible that our hurricane is going to make land right in the middle of Dade County, and don't be surprised if Coral Gables is one of the hardest hit areas. Not to make you any more jittery than you might be, Catherine.
Well, I've got my car in the basement, and that's a start.
Well, that's good, because I think we've got all the cars out of the parking lot here, and that's for good reason, too, because we're right on the island. Stay tuned and stand by. Thank you very much for the report, Catherine. I want to point out that Catherine Lister began the day with the Dan Quayle train wagon, or whatever it is, up in northern Florida, and she had to go to church with the vice president about 6 o'clock this morning, make her way down here this afternoon. So we're working on fumes, folks. Some of us are today at News Talk Radio 610 WIOD.
And I've been out here for about the past, I guess, ever since 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, just waiting for it to hit. And believe me, in this whole area, it's hitting big time.
You getting strong winds and rain?
Getting a lot of strong winds, a lot of rain, like gusts and gusts of rain. They'll come for about 20 minutes, they'll slow down, and they'll come up again. I can see right out in front of me, through one of my telephoto lenses, I can see at least 4 or 5 power lines down. There are sparks across the street that have been going now for an hour, hour and a half. Down the street to my right, there's power out. We lost our power for about 5 minutes, and it came back on. I've been listening to you guys all night on a battery radio. I just want to let you know you guys are doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you. And if you see anything more happening and you're still out there photographing and watching, give us a call later, Pete.
With the exception of a couple of trees down, it seems to be a little bit normal right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it's 2:59. Let me interrupt to say that Metro Traffic is confirming now that there is a fire at the Biscayne Boulevard and Aventura area at the Aventura Weston Royale, or I hope I have this read right, the Aventura Western Bank. And there was a flicker here. We want to turn off the beeper. We're still on the air. A little shot there. Again, Biscayne Boulevard and Aventura at the Aventura Western Bank, but fire officials are not responding because of the high winds, which they will not do. So we'll keep that in mind. We've already lost the cable. We're getting flickering TV sets in the back. Let me quickly remind you that this is WIOD, WFLC, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. We're also being heard on WSUN, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater, and WSB Atlanta. We're on the air. It's continuous coverage, as it has been now since, between 6 and 7 o'clock on Sunday morning from WIOD's continuous coverage of Hurricane Andrew. It's starting to get a little funky here, quite frankly. The winds have picked up. The rain is more intense. And the flicker of lights always is a signal.
Yes, and our hands are shaking a little more, I've noticed.
Just a touch.
All of a sudden.
We have some people on the line waiting to talk to us. We'll pull them up on the air right now at 3 o'clock. This is Cutler Ridge. Hello, you're on the air?
My name's Bonnie, and I know that all of Cutler Ridge was evacuated, and we're on 152nd Street by Metro Zoo area, and I didn't see anything about that area being evacuated. Do you know if we were?
Well, I believe that the area evacuated beyond Cutler Ridge was anything below 200th Street. If you're on 152nd, it all depends on where you are on 152nd.
We're in, it's right across from Metro Zoo.
You're pretty far inland, and I would guess that you're in pretty good shape if you're out by Metro Zoo.
Was anybody else in your neighborhood area evacuated?
Pretty much down the street.
Well, are you at home?
Yes. And we have one other couple here, but we're petrified.
Well, there's no place to go right now.
No, I know.
Tape up the windows a little bit?
Yeah, we did, and we put up some boards, but you know how that was. You couldn't get them anywhere.
Well, you're probably in pretty good shape, and right now just find that secure spot in your house where there are no windows, a hallway or something like that has no windows, and make yourself...
This is Mike Albert in the News Talk Radio 620 WSUN Weather Center. For the Tampa Bay area, variable cloudiness through the rest of the nighttime. Scattered showers, a few gusty winds, lows in the low 70s. Later today, cloudy, rainy, strong gusty winds and highs in the upper 80s. Hurricane Andrew will soon make landfall. The latest coordinates, latitude 25.4 degrees north, longitude 79.3 degrees west. Now only 60 miles east of Miami. Maximum sustained winds 140 miles an hour. Movement continues westerly at 17 miles an hour. A hurricane warning and a tornado watch remain in effect in South Florida. A hurricane watch continues from north of Venice up to Bayport, which includes the Tampa Bay area. As you've heard, the storm is now affecting the Miami area. The biggest impact on the area is expected around 6 a.m. Stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date here at your official hurricane information station. I'm Mike Albert in the 620 WSUN Weather Center.
Soper, do you have anything to add? Do you have some numbers?
We've just got the latest coordinates and the latest advisory on Hurricane Andrew from the National Hurricane Center. Right now located at 25.4 north, 79.7 west. That's 40 miles east of Miami. Now, we're talking about the center of the storm is 40 miles east of Miami. The eye wall around the center of the storm is about 30 miles out, so it's very, very imminent. Winds have gone back up to near 140 miles per hour. And the Hurricane Andrew continues to move toward the west at 18 miles per hour. And as we say, the tropical storm force winds are already reaching across the peninsula, all the way across, reaching the other side of the state. The whole thing continues to move toward the west. And actually now hurricane force winds extend outward up to 45 miles from the center. So we are now in hurricane force winds in many parts of South Florida. If you're not in them yet, you will be momentarily. And, of course, the roughest winds, the 140 mile per hour winds located very, very close, very tight now around the center. So it hasn't really made a significant change in strength, and it looks like it's going to continue continue across the state, and as we say, exit at some point tomorrow morning off the southwest coast.
Bob, you see that line about the weather conditions rapidly deteriorating? Fowey Rocks, located about 10 miles southeast of downtown Miami, is reported sustained winds of 59 miles an hour with a gust of 69 during the past hour.
Right.
So it's getting close.
Yeah, we have a gust of 35 at West Palm, 40 in Miami, 62 on Miami Beach, 20 at Flamingo. Now, these are all as of 3 a.m., but I'm telling you, we've been having gusts stronger than that here. There's no question about it. The gusts have been going well over 60 miles to 70 miles per hour against these shutters right here in North Bay Village.
And, Bob, the barometric pressure now 27.64.
Yeah, it's gone back down a little bit. It was up to 27.79 and now back down, which is an indicator that it just doesn't know what it wants to do.
140 miles an hour.
Yeah, that brought the winds back up. Before that a little rise in the pressure brought the winds down a little bit. Now the pressure's gone back down. The winds go back up. It's an inverse relationship between the pressure and the wind speed.
There will be another scheduled update at 5 o'clock. I notice it is now at 18 miles per hour. The storm itself picking up a mile per hour since the last one. Let's go.